recess us until we go into our meeting. Kate, unless you had any more things, Kate? Okay.
I have one more question.
I'm calling to order
Yes, you are.
the Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, December 4th, 2019. Bart, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance,
Please
please?
stand and join the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Gabriel, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Kuczynski? Absent Commissioner Talley?
Here.
Commissioner Wu?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Crandall?
Here.
Vice Chair Blackwell?
Here.
And Chair Rowland.
Here. Item number 4, special orders, we have none. Item 5, minutes, we have 2 sets of minutes. The first is the minutes from the adjourned regular study session meeting of November 20th, 2019. Is there a request for change or a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of the adjourned study session of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission from November 20, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Jason, second by Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry. One abstention, so 501. And then we have the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of November 20th, 2019. Are there any requests for changes or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission, November 20, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Jason, second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And one abstention, so 501. Item 6, oral and written communications. Members of the public may address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city and are not otherwise on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone, and if you desire, state your name and/or city of residence for the record and make your presentations. Please limit your presentations to 3 minutes. I have 2 cards. The first is Courtney Morrow.
Good evening. Okay, 1 second. It would help if I remembered my code. Okay. Okay, a couple things in response to the study session. I would like to request that the public be noticed upon receipt of application. They should receive those within 300 feet of the application, should be noticed in writing, and I would love to request that this be posted to the website. We already have a page dedicated to it. Currently, Katie has been managing which ones have been applied for, denied, and incomplete. She's been designating the status of these, and I think it'd be really important as they come in that that be posted to the website. This would also alleviate some of that timeline wherever you guys land in terms of the filing of the appeal. This would help give people time. The other thing that I'm concerned about is typically with appeals, there's fees, and this puts a disproportionate burden on residents to pay that $1,200 appeals fee that typically the applicants would have to pay for an appeal. And I'd like to see if there's any way that there could be a waiving of that fee, or if there is going to be a $1,200 fee, that's quite a financial burden, again, on residents. We should be given as much ample time to be able to, procure that amount of funds to be able to appeal these to hopefully a higher body than just the community development director, but that's for discussion. Also, this is a map currently of AT&T's sites where they have proposed. You can see they're pretty much concentrated in 2 communities. I went back and I looked because I am a little concerned about CEQA. This was recently posted in the Federal Register that the DC Court of Appeals has deemed that these are not exempt from NEPA. And while NEPA doesn't apply in the state of California, CEQA does. And when staff recommended the 4 sites back in August, they considered these to be a Class 3, which is a new construction or conversion of small structures. And they determine them to be exempt based on that. However, if you look at the exceptions within the categorical exemptions in CEQA, you will see that cumulative impacts location and cumulative impacts are the first two exceptions. All exemptions of these classes are inapplicable when the cumulative impact of successive projects of the same type in the same place over time is significant. This is really important. You're talking about placing these 100 feet from each other or 300 feet. Now we're going to reduce that to 200 feet. We can't look at these in isolation. We have to look at the cumulative impacts of multiple nodes within a particular area and also look at that in relation to current infrastructure that we have now. It would behoove the city to get measurements of our current infrastructure, including macro sites, and then be able to determine, the impact that will have when you're looking at 5 nodes within 1,000 feet of each other and how that impacts the community.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just one question to Ms. Morrow. So on the notice that you're talking about,
Yes.
what do you consider to be a reasonable time? So the city gets it, right?
If they get it, I would love that they can post it to the website,
Within,
I don't know, 2 business days?
well, I mean, it takes longer than that to go through, I mean,
But essentially, the application.
Within 10 business days, is that considered reasonable? I'm thinking about when I apply for a business, not business, but a building permit, it's like 3 weeks before you hear anything, but 10 days for notice, would that?
Well, I mean, if this is such a tight timeline, I think it should be less than that to notify the public. I mean, if we're having to compromise on our appeal time, because standard is usually 5 business days, then perhaps there needs to be a compromise on city staff to be able to notify us, I think it should be no more than 3 business days to post that to a website. As far as the noticing, the written notice within 300 feet, I mean, that could potentially be the 10 days, but it shouldn't be that difficult because based on our application procedures as it's currently written, the applicants are supposed to pre-meet with city staff. We should already know what's coming in prior to that meeting. And when these applications come in day 1, they should essentially be complete if they've done the checklist thoroughly. So that's 90 days from that time it comes in. I think that's reasonable. Thanks.
And the other card I have is for Christine Newhousen.
Good evening. Regarding the process of appeal, sometimes I don't check my mail every day. Or what if someone has gone on vacation for, say, a week? Then what? You got to think about that, too. The 6G technology is soon underway. China already has nationwide 5G and is developing 6G. 6G will use even higher frequency, so let us keep this in mind, please, when deciding on the placement of distance on these small cells from homes and schools. We need to look at the bigger picture. Setting the distance at only 100 feet is not looking at the safety of our residents and our rapid changing future of technology. If Encinitas can manage 500 feet from homes and 1,500 feet from pole to pole, why are you making it sound impossible that we cannot apply the same rules? The topography is very similar with both cities. Also, Mr. Wu, I understand you want to place trees around the pole, but according to AT&T's staff report and Lee Afflerbach, who was here at the last meeting, the most dangerous place to be is in the main transmitter beam of these cell tower, small cells. So that would put themselves in harm's way. Also, if you look at restaurants, my good friend Allura Aguilera, maybe some of you know her, she's a well-known architect, her husband as well, in San Clemente, and they're building a 2-story restaurant on Del Mar. So you have to look at restaurants as well, and obviously homes in the main transmitter beam. I don't know if there's a way to put that in the ordinance to keep that away from that. Dr. Arthur Furstenberg from Germany, he studied the study that I mentioned last time, and I've been conversing with him back and forth via email. And it was the study with the cancer rates that tripled among residents living 1,300 feet within the cell tower. And I asked him, what was the radiation that was given off from that cell tower? And he said approximately 1 gigahertz. So, as you know, the 5G gives up to 90 gigahertz. So that cancer rate tripled among those residents within 1,300 feet. He told me that the 5G is a new technology and is inherent dangerous and should be prohibited altogether. Certainly, he said, it should never be 100 feet or even 700 feet from a home. I understand the placement of these small cells are inevitable, but however, please reconsider placing these cells further than 100 feet from homes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last card I have for that. Is there anybody who wants to speak during the oral, anyone else who wants to speak during the oral argument? You do? Okay, can you hand your card to, please step up the microphone. Anne Marie Hines.
Hello. Thanks for letting us speak and for letting us have a voice, because this is our city and we are the citizens who own property and have lived here for a long time. My family, 20 years, and I never thought I'd be standing here defending my property and my neighbor's property from potential harm. I'm here actually just to ask too that businesses be included in the safety zone of what Christy talked about. I think even 500 feet, because actually youth work at these businesses too, and we know that their skulls are not fully developed until they're about 25 years old, and the young people are the most impacted by these frequencies. Also, let's see, these people in these businesses work 45 to 60 hours per week. So you want to protect residences and schools. Well, there are people who are going to be exposed to these frequencies, some quite intense, because some of these towers, in fact, the new one over by the Circle K Mobile Market and the Lowe's is right there and in the business district off of Amanacer. So we need to think about the people that will be directly radiated, and you will all be responsible for any harmful outcomes to their lives and their posterity too. Okay, so we need to be thinking about the long-term exposure, because we all agree, all the RF experts who were here at the last meeting, at the workshop, said that distance is our friend, okay? The people who are closest to those towers are the ones who get most affected. Okay, so I was in Laguna Beach just a few weeks ago at the farmer's market, and I parked in lot 10. I had to drive about 1 mile up into the canyon to make a U-turn to go back to the coast. And there were at least 10 cell towers within a mile radius because of all the different companies that wanted different towers on the wooden poles there. They were about 10 feet high, and I'm telling you, that place used to be idyllic. I used to love to drive that canyon. I couldn't wait to get out of there and get back on the coast and get back to San Clemente. And I do not want to see the aesthetics of this town be impacted by all these small cell towers, possibly 100 feet apart, and ruining the aesthetics of this Spanish village by the sea, okay? Because people come here as tourists. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to come here if there was 5G all over my town. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the last card I had. Is there anyone else who wants to speak at this time? If not, I will close the oral and written communication. Item 7, consent calendar. We have nothing on our consent calendar. Public hearings. We have no public hearings. Under new business, we have installation of 3 ballot drop boxes in the city. So, Stephanie?
Good evening, Chair Rulin and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Stephanie Rojas, Senior Planner. We have a couple of folks available to answer any questions regarding this item. So we also have Joanne Bade, our City Clerk, as well as David Goulding. He represents, he's here on behalf of the Orange County Registrar of Voters. And today we're going to be tag teaming the presentation. So David will first speak on why we're here today and how they selected the sites that are being presented in the presentation. And I'll conclude the presentation with a more in-depth discussion of the specific box locations. So I'll go ahead and first turn it over to David.
Good evening, Commissioners. So in 2016, the state legislature passed the Voters' Choice Act, and in February of this year, the County Board of Supervisors approved Orange County to vote that way. The Voters' Choice Act essentially takes away polling places throughout Orange County and implements what's called vote centers, and also ballot drop boxes, what we're here to talk about tonight. Every voter in Orange County would get, every registered voter, excuse me, would receive a vote by mail ballot. In 2018, almost 70% of the registered voters in Orange County voted by mail. They sent in a ballot, or they dropped off a ballot at a polling place. So most people aren't voting in person, so there's a need to have places where they can drop off their ballots, because that's what they're choosing to do. So what are ballot drop boxes? As you can see in the picture, ballot drop boxes, we're going to have about 110 throughout the county, 3 in San Clemente, and that's based on voter registration. That's what we would be required to put in the city. As you can see, they're large, they're secure, they're accessible, they're locked. Our target is to put them throughout the county in public and private locations. That could be anywhere from a city facility, like a library or a county facility, and in private locations like shopping centers. Some cities that is much easier than others, and San Clemente has not been as easy to find these locations as it has been in some locations that are a little bit more dense, like Anaheim, Santa Ana, where there's a lot more retail and a lot more urban, versus residences like there is in San Clemente. So they're open for 30 days, including Election Day. They're open by our staff and closed by our staff. Ballots are received by our staff. No one else touches the ballot box except for us. We do 100% of the maintenance. If there's any issue with the box, it needs to be cleaned. If there happen to be graffiti or anything else done to it, our office takes care of that and takes care of any maintenance and any costs related with that. So how do we choose ballot drop boxes? So in SB 450, there's a list of criteria that we need to look at. And there's you can see voter travel distance, density, accessibility, parking availability, public transportation. There's a few other listed, and that could be anything from areas with historically low vote by mail usage, population centers, language and minority communities, voters with disabilities. There's about 11 different requirements. Basically what we do is we put this in a heat map, and it'll give us our target areas. That's where we start looking for ballot drop boxes. If there's not a location that we can find in those areas, we start searching outward to see if there's locations close to those that may work for a ballot drop box. So you can see we've targeted these 4 locations, but there are retail partners that we've tried to work with in San Clemente so far. Thus far, we haven't been able to come to any agreements to put them in any retail sites. Some of the other sites we looked at the train station, which we've had been very good luck with some of the train stations throughout the county being able to place ballot drop boxes there, but there just wasn't a good location to put a ballot drop box there. Some of the other locations we've been looking at was Talega Village, the Outlets, Plaza Pacifica, the Valere was a previous polling place, so we reached out to them. And then also, this was a location we looked at originally that was rejected. So, I think there's. So that's kind of how we find ballot drop boxes. Like I said, in these cases, we reached out to the city, being a city partner, to see if there were places that we can put ballot drop boxes. I know there were some concerns with parks. We are looking at parks in other cities as well, so we are placing them at some other parks in other cities, not just San Clemente. But that's kind of where we're at right now, trying to get these placed, around the 1st of the year, because voter information guides will start going out the 23rd of January, and by that point, all the sites need to be set so we can send them to the voters so they know where these locations will be so they can vote. And so I'm willing to answer any questions or.
Are there any questions? Jason?
So just to be clear, these are going to replace the polling stations in the city of San Clemente?
So yes and no. So you won't have traditional polling places. You will have what's called vote centers. So I believe San Clemente is 1 11-day vote center and 4 4-day vote centers. Any registered voter in Orange County could vote at one of those vote centers. So if they, lived in Anaheim, but they work in San Clemente, they could vote at any of those vote centers. Or, they go to church down here, they could vote on the weekend at those vote centers. So you will just have those five vote centers to vote at, as opposed to polling places that just open that one single day, election day.
So, take away apple pie next. One of the things that I saw on the prior slide was that you wanted a location with location covered by security cameras highly desirable.
It is highly desirable,
So
yeah.
none of these locations have security cameras,
That is
right?
correct, yeah.
So, I mean, the sanctity of our ballots seems like that should be like number one.
It is one of the criteria we look at. It's not a requirement by the Secretary of State. It's something we consider. So yes, it is highly desirable, but in most cases, if people are mailing their ballot in a post office, in a mailbox, that is not under a camera.
But
So,
that's a secure government facility, right?
well, not a blue mailbox that you just drop it in on the street. Or if you leave it at your house, there's not necessarily a security camera there. So yes, it is highly desirable, but it's not going to be feasible to get 110 locations that all have security cameras.
You have, these that are here, you mentioned a couple that do have security cameras, like the outlets and the Talega Village and things like that. Are those just not possible?
It's not that they're not possible. We've reached out to both them. We're still dialoguing with those entities, but at this point, we've not been able to reach an agreement to put a ballot drop box in those locations.
When did you reach out to them?
I don't have, we've started in about July, reaching out to entities all throughout the county, so we've been doing it all summer. Yeah. And not just, we've reached out to any major retailer in Orange County, so all your grocery stores, your property management, all those entities to try to get ballot drop box locations.
Thank you.
Don?
Yeah, I emailed to Stephanie, I guess you were CC'd on a couple of those. I had some concerns about a couple of the sites, like the municipal golf course, it's right on the right-of-way, even though this is a drive-through box capability, possibility of moving it off the right-of-way back into the parking lot better so you can get out and mail your stuff there. And I was really concerned about San Gregorio because it's very isolated, it's not very well trafficked. And the side of the building you decided to put it on isn't lit because the other side of it has a basketball court, so I think it was kind of time of year when you vote, it wouldn't be very safe at night to go up there, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of traffic up there. It's so isolated, not very many people go there. So I'd like to have a comment on, the City Hall is good, Forster Ranch Community Park is probably very good, and it's got a light there, and the Muni's fairly good if you just move it right off the edge of the right-of-way. The City Hall is acceptable. Just San Gregorio is the one location I felt was, you're wasting a lot of money putting up a box that is probably never going to be used. Or maybe you get one or two ballots when people go by to play pickleball or something like that.
Commissioner Brown, if you don't mind, I do have several exhibits for each of the locations, so perhaps we can go over each location and then open it up to, comments to the commissioners after we see the exhibits. So,
Okay, I beg your pardon, I didn't realize.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That's right, you said you were tag teaming.
Yeah. So
My
one thing I do just want to mention about this map that was provided as attachment 2 is that these sites are listed in order of highest to lowest preference as given by city staff. These staff preferences were based primarily on convenience and access to voters, as well as ensuring that the ballot drop boxes are equally distributed throughout the city. So the 4 locations were selected by the county and appropriately vetted to ensure that it complies with all of their requirements, and then we are just presenting it in the order that we think that city staff feels is most appropriate, given just providing an equal dispersion throughout the city. So the first location is located at City Hall. City staff was particularly concerned about placing the box near the front lobby entrance where it would become a visually dominant feature to everyone walking into City Hall. So therefore, staff was recommending locating the box at the back of the building, and county staff did request installing directional signage in the parking lot to direct voters to the location of the drop box. So since everybody's familiar with this, I won't cover it too much.
So it's not just visually dominating to you when you walk into the office every day.
Okay, the second location is at San Gorgonio Park. I did want to correct an error within your staff report. So in your staff report, it was originally listed, oops, I'm sorry about that, along this wall against the restroom building, but the county staff is actually recommending that it be placed in the location illustrated here. And so I included a couple of additional photographs of the park because, as Commissioner Brown mentioned, he was concerned about staff lighting and ensuring that the ballot box will provide a safe mode of access to voters, so, you know, and making sure that it's a safe area. So they did provide a picture to show that there is lighting in the park within close proximity to the proposed location of the ballot drop box. The existing walkway is fairly large, as you can see, and let's see. One of the things that staff is seeking is direction on the specific box placements within each site. So because it's fairly large, you know, the Planning Commission, if they desire, could also recommend locating it here as well. Okay, so the third location is located at the municipal golf course. Let's see. Staff recommends this location because it is conveniently located near a large population center. However, as noted in your staff report, this location is highly visible because it's located right along a large arterial. So, based on the concerns regarding aesthetics and just high visibility, staff did reach out to the golf course manager, who offered additional location alternatives, which are depicted in yellow here. So these are just some on both sides of the driveways leading into the parking lot on the other side of the golf course. The golf course manager suggested these 4 potential locations, but as you can see, the box would still be visible from the road. So I have included this aerial view of the municipal golf course because if the Planning Commission determines that this is an appropriate location but is not pleased with the locations that were presented in this PowerPoint presentation, we are seeking guidance on the exact box placement. So again, you know, that's the direction that we're seeking tonight. And the last location is at Forester Ranch Community Park. It's lowest on the preference list primarily because it is less centrally located within the city. However, the suggested box placement is located further set back from the road and would not obstruct any pathway. And then I also wanted to note that there also was an error in attachment 3. So in your report, it was shown over here, but the box placement is, as suggested by county staff, is actually over here. So in summary, the County of Orange reviewed available sites in the city and narrowed it down to 4 potential locations. The county, in collaboration with staff, took a look at the locations and is presenting it to the Planning Commission tonight to seek guidance on what the 3 preferred locations would be and specifically where the box placement within each site would be. Ultimately, Planning Commission's recommended locations will be forwarded to the City Council. We are targeting presenting the license agreements to the City Council on December 17th, so fairly soon. So, you know, we're hoping to get some feedback tonight. So this concludes my presentation. We are all available for any questions.
Okay, and Don, did you want to finish?
Well, I guess if you're going to pick 3 of the 4, I would not recommend San Gorgonio just because of its isolation, but the other ones are.
Well, let's start with questions for now and for
Okay.
these guys. So, Michael, question?
Yes, I do, thank you. Either one of you, can you tell me what the, with typical voting, what the highest frequency of voters is, what time of day? I'm assuming it's after 5 o'clock.
Well, based on the fact that they're open 29 days, we don't have that data yet because Orange County hasn't voted that way yet, so we don't have data to say yet what time they will be voted yet.
So in general, typically when voters go to voting polls, what time of day do they typically?
Well, keep in mind, it's only been 1 day, so normally it's in the morning or it's lunch or it's in the evening. Those
Okay.
are your busiest times.
Okay, and how tall are these boxes?
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
those,
right.
53
Okay, so we've
inches.
got, so So 50, about 48 inches to the receptacle piece. Okay, and then, so Stephanie, the parking, have we looked at any kind of stacking, potential for stacking during high peak hours, like after work, after 5 p.m. in the mornings?
You know, unfortunately, due to the quick turnaround, since the county is requesting to install these boxes end of January 2020, correct?
They need to be installed by about the 23rd, 24th of January.
Correct.
Okay.
So due to that quick turnaround time, we weren't able to involve our traffic engineering staff to take a look at the specific locations of the boxes and how that could potentially affect traffic and parking. But if that's something that you have concerns on, that's certainly something that we can discuss with our traffic engineer before the city council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then, is this the upper limit? Is this the maximum number of boxes that are planned here in the city? 3 or 4?
3, yeah.
3.
That's based on registration. So obviously, if San Clemente got an influx of people and there were more registered voters, it would adjust go up or down based on that, yeah.
Okay. And then finally, Stephanie, how feasible would it be to look at the design and the placement so that we could do it similar to was it Negocio post office? Used to have the drive-by mailboxes. Folks could stack in there and get through very quickly. And this is about the right height. You might need a little lift with a curb or a base, some sort of platform to get it up a couple more inches. But have we looked at any of these locations as a possible relocating to the left side so folks could drive in and just simply put their vote in, sit in their car and keep going without parking their car and getting out and causing stacking issues? Is that a possibility?
Which location are you referring
All
to?
of them. Finding within, that area of the property, finding a location that instead of being on they're all on the right side. So one would have to literally park and get out of their car and walk over and drop their vote. So in town, we've got a post office that has a setup, and many do, where you can just drive through and mail your letter. You don't have to get out of your car. Yeah. Folks stack up. They just keep moving. It's very fluid.
Yeah.
That would be one way to address any potential impacts to traffic or any circulation issues. So have we looked at doing that?
Unfortunately, it's just a timing situation. So since these boxes need to be installed before the primary election, which is, just a couple of weeks away, there isn't a whole lot of time for us to be able to do those extensive reviews.
Okay.
I don't know if the county would be open to possibly looking at locations even after the primary election, because I know that that's really what's driving these timelines right now, getting everything done and installed before the primary election.
Okay, so the boxes would be removed after the election?
The boxes would not be removed.
So these are permanent?
Yeah.
So these are designed to be placed on level surface, and they're anchored?
That is correct, yeah.
So they're anchored with what? How are they anchored?
It's threaded rod, so I'm not sure how far the contractor goes down, but yeah, they're anchored and secured.
Okay, so
the bolts are hidden, so you can't see them unless the box is open.
So it's with bolts,
Yeah.
basically, so they're removable. So, we could potentially look at this as a temporary fix for now and then see how it works. And if there are any issues, maybe start considering, well, maybe that's a discussion point, but considering a location that would allow for, the drive-by, scenario in a more permanent situation there. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Can you talk for a moment on how these are going to be advertised to the public? You mentioned, they'll receive the ballot, maybe they'll see, here's the closest ones to you, here's all of them in Orange County, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so you're going to start, the first thing is the voter information guide. We're going to start sending out postcards probably the next few weeks to all registered voters, letting them know about the changes, as well as there will be print advertisements. It's going to be on television, movie theaters, places like that. But the goal in mailing is to get a voter, probably touch them 3 or 4 times with some sort of mailing, letting them know about the changes.
And they'll have a map that says you can drop your
Correct, yeah. The map will come in the voter, besides our website, the map will be in the voter information guide. It'll be kind of the centerfold, it'll open up and give a countywide map showing where all the locations are.
Oh, countywide, okay,
Yeah.
great. And there's still going to be polling places, fewer of them, but there'll still be polling places for people to go and...
Yeah, so they're not called polling places, they're called vote centers. So
Okay.
people still have the opportunity, if they want to vote in person, they can absolutely do that. But they have a choice to vote up to 11 days before the election at one of the vote centers. So you'll have one 11-day, 10 days plus election days, so 11 days. You'll have one of those in San Clemente, and then 4 4-day locations that they can go up to 4 days and vote. But
That's
yeah,
great.
people can still certainly go and vote in person if that's what they want to do.
And they can also slap a stamp on it and put it in the U.S. mail, right?
They don't even need to slap a stamp on it, so in 2020, it's all prepaid postage, so they don't need to slap a stamp on it anymore.
Okay.
Leave it in your residential mailbox, and the mailman will pick it up for you.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But question probably for you, Stephanie, the signage that the county has asked for in terms of directing to the back of the building, because it's not very visible, can that be temporary signage? Is that something that can be put up, a month before an election and removed after the election?
From a staff perspective, I really don't see a reason why it couldn't be temporary.
Does the county have?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, in the times where they're not in election, the box is closed, so someone couldn't put a ballot or anything else in there anyways. I don't see why there would need to be signage up all the time, probably just during an election.
Okay, thank you. Jason, do you have questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. So the Forester Ranch Community Park, I mean, that's where we go to pick up my sons every day. And it's convenient for the school, but I'm thinking about, there's a large portion of our population that's, past that, back in Talega. And I really wonder if that's the best park, or if like the Vista Hermosa Sports Park might be better. Was that considered? Because that's convenient to Forester.
Yeah, I believe there's a vote center there.
But this is open substantially longer than a vote center, right?
Well, it's open for 29 days, yeah.
Right, whereas vote center is either 4 or 10 plus 1.
Correct.
So why wouldn't you want to, I mean, a vote center can't take the ballot, can it?
Yes, they can. And many people do choose to take their ballot and give it to someone in person. So yeah, we certainly take ballots at vote centers as well.
I just think that this is, without substantial signage there at Vista Hermosa, or I'm sorry, at Forester, you'll need signage there to tell people how to get all the way back to that, because that's fairly far back in the complex, and I'm just not sure how widely used that would be.
Okay.
That's the place that we go all the time, so I don't know if it'll achieve the results you're looking for there.
Okay.
But maybe you're just trying to check a box too, so that would achieve
Well,
that
yes and no.
box.
I mean, obviously, we're able to pull data after an election to see how often the box is used. So obviously, we want the boxes to stay in the same place so the voter knows where to go. But if there's a box that nobody goes to, there's no point in keeping a box there. So we'll be able to pull data and see how often it
Could
was
we
used.
see that data then? Because obviously, if we're making a decision, we want to make a decision on where the box
Well,
is.
we don't have that data now because we
No,
haven't.
after, say, in a year, would we be able to review the data on the propensity of people to use a specific box?
I don't want to speak for the registrar of voters, but I would assume so. I don't think there's anything confidential with that. So ultimately, Neil Kelly would make that decision, but I would think that would be data that we could share as we're working with partners to figure out if a box goes there.
Because we want people to use this, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yes.
So if they're not using it, then
Yeah,
find a place they do use it.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Bart, did you? Oh, okay, Zen.
For the design, has the design been finalized?
Yes.
Is there any alternative design? Because I ask this question because a ballot box needs to be visible and needs to be in the front so people can easily find them. But if you make the color so bright, so that's why the staff may want to put it behind the building. That defeats your purpose. I wonder if you have any possibility to paint it differently than use a temporary sign.
At this point, no. They've all been wrapped in that graphic. We've already started putting them out in some cities. So at this point, no, there's no alternative graphic or color or anything like that.
Okay, for the 4 sites you preliminarily picked, tell me about the public transportation. Is that a must-have?
There is no must in anything. The bill tells us to consider, so we consider everything heavily and try to weight it, but there's no must that something must have something. But yes, we do consider public transportation
Which
heavily.
one has public transportation here?
Well, you can see, all of those have a public transportation. One of the biggest thing is the 5 going right there for those 2 lower locations. But we also measure how far the closest bus stop is, or a train station to figure out public transportation.
Is Sangonia Park served by any public transportation?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sangonia, location 2, although it's next to Interstate 5. It's separate.
Yeah, actually, it doesn't, it scores fine on public transportation, San Gorgonio Park.
What is a public transportation?
Bus route goes down.
Yeah, it could be a bus route, it could be a freeway, it could be a train.
Bus route goes down to Carroll.
Yeah.
I don't think it's our definition of public transportation.
Access to it.
Okay.
Public road.
Now, have you reached out to any retail or commercial use near De Los Mares and the freeway exit?
You're gonna have to educate me on exactly where that is.
It's nearby
Data Brothers,
Stater Brothers and a previous hospital.
Waltons.
The old theaters, Coin Theater.
I don't have that data. I have the retail ones that we've reached out to and we've talked to. Countywide, retail has been tough, and so you reach out to a certain amount of retail. Some have been very welcoming, and some of our retail partners, some have not. So at a certain time, it's just a numbers game, and you reach out to so many retail, they say no, and you start to move on to either city and county partners.
Does the county pay them to get them installed?
No. Like, does it pay like a rent?
Let's say a gas station may be at a perfect location nearby, near a freeway exit and in the commercial district.
Would the county pay to put it there? Is that what you're asking?
Would the county pay?
We are not paying.
We do not.
At this point, we are not paying anything to put a ballot drop box at any location. And that has been a hindrance in some of our, we've talked to shopping malls.
That's why you cannot get them to an ideal location. Okay, thank you.
Well, keep in mind, we had retail partners that were, you look at a shopping mall that wanted to charge us $3,000 a month, which isn't feasible for us to do that, 50 times throughout the county.
Okay, thank you. And last question about the box is designed to have 2 slots on both sides, one for vehicle, another one for pedestrian. It's like a typical mailbox, drop-off box by the post office. And do you have any luck finding any location in the county that to accommodate that configuration?
For the drive-through?
Uh-huh.
Right now, we just located one. In most cases, it's tough because if you look at most post office boxes that do that, there's usually an island that they drive through because we drive on the opposite, our steering wheel is on the other side. So in most cases, you need some sort of island to put the boxes on that you're driving
That's
through
right.
so you can drop your ballot.
Or
as the
you
driver.
have a one-way drive or a center median type
Yeah.
of thing. Okay. All right, thank you.
Bart? Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical about these in the first place, because I can't see myself ever using one. When you can vote by mail from your own home and all. So if San Gorgonio, I believe, gets locked off occasionally, and it's not 24-hour accessible, there's a gate on that park, so I'm not sure it's the best one. I think Don kind of identified that. There's another park up by the outlets that's adjacent to Shorecliff School, a brand-new park that might be a better location than San Gorgonio. And did you ever try any fire stations?
Yes, we have yeah, we are working with some fire stations in the county.
Did the city look at any of the fire stations? Because there's the one off Los Mares right next to, what, PG&E or whatever's up there. It's got a big parking lot and
It's up by this Hermosa Park, too.
might be a good location.
The other ones were,
It's up by the hospital.
Cam is up there by this Hermosa Park.
That's another one that would be very good, up by the sports park. And I know that parking lot is not as accessible as the one on Los Mares. That's got a big lot there because of the utility company lot. But I'd consider that one, and I think at the,
Mr. Hermosa Sports.
yeah. And at the golf course, I think one of the alternative locations is probably better since it's used so seldom, that the golf course selected. I think you showed 4 arrows. And what is that, the 10th tee box over there, Don?
No, number 9 green right there to your left, under the tree.
Yeah, the one back in there by that power box probably wouldn't be bad. That might be a good location.
So, let me ask, these locations, the 4 locations that you're presenting to us, you want us to pick, 3 of the 4. Given our time constraints, so, some people obviously are suggesting some different locations. Is there time and space for that in terms of this election, or is these are our choices for this election, and maybe next one we'll have some different choices?
Well, for this election, I need to take it to council on December 17th because the first council meeting in January is canceled, and they need to be installed the end of January. One thing I would ask David, though, is how much trouble would it be to relocate them?
To relocate them on a site that we've already looked at, or to put them on a...
If they did not work out well for this election, to relocate them so that the other locations could be investigated.
I think we're willing to look at anything after the election based on the data that we get, to see, how often they were used.
Yeah, I think we do, yeah,
Well, no,
state law.
do we have to have these?
Do you have to have them?
Yeah.
You don't have to. We can put them in another city, and then the voters in San Clemente wouldn't have a place to drop off their ballots other than in the mailbox or in person.
Okay, it feels like we're moving into discussion here, so I just wanted to quickly open it up for public input, if we have any. Is there anyone who wants, in the public, who wants to speak to this item? Doesn't look like it, so I will close public hearing. We'll open it up for general discussion. I will kind of jump in here and say this is one of those, it seems like we're dealing with all time-sensitive stuff tonight. But because of our time restrictions, it looks to me like we might be smart in limiting our discussion to these locations. It looks like there's some options within the locations, in the golf course, that sort of a thing. Maybe the first thing we should ask ourselves is which one would we want to eliminate?
And I would recommend you not consider San Gregorio. It's just so isolated. Just not a lot of people are going to drive there unless they're going to go play pickleball. You can maybe get some votes from them, but it's very isolated. I don't think you're going to get a lot of, you're going to send a lot of people down there to pick up stuff that's not going to be.
It's not pedestrian friendly either. It's not a place you walk to.
All right, so
I would eliminate San Gregorio.
It sounds like, do we have a basic consensus on that San Gregorio loses out to one of these boxes?
That's my vote.
Although I think the argument could also be made that, there aren't a lot of people in there, so that can have a lot of impact for folks dropping off, in their cars. So, kind of out of sight. Whether it's at San Gregorio or at the park that Mr. Crandall mentioned.
I don't know, do you know what the name of that park is, Stephanie? Up there, off Vista Hermosa and the freeway?
Jim, the guy that was
Jim Beam or Jim?
No,
Jim Johnson.
Sorry.
Jim Johnson.
Sorry.
Jim Johnson Park.
Captain Morgan.
It's the new one, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Jason, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess, I don't like having to make decisions with our, with a gun to our head like this. It's like what I candidly do to my 13-year-old. I give him two choices, choose one, and, both of them are acceptable to me. I honestly feel like this is a cop-out by the county. I mean, we've got how many retail establishments we have in this town that have security cameras and have the ability to be monitored, and we pick 4 locations that are owned by the city that have absolutely zero ability to ensure that, the ballot drop boxes, probably our most, solemn duty as citizens of this country, are monitored. And I don't like it. I'm not going to vote in favor of any of them. So that's my answer. But if you're going to drop one, probably San Gregorio.
Okay. Bart, did you have a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm forgiven.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that, I too am a little concerned about I appreciate the sense of urgency, and I think that, considering the nature of this request, that we would, work with them, but also maybe revisit this later and find locations that are less intrusive. I mean, visually, I think that, at the golf course, back under the tree, it's kind of out of sight is better. There could be, Forester Ranch, I don't like that at all. In fact, I think the recommended spot is on top of a manhole cover. So that doesn't work. Did you hear that? So that doesn't work at all, and I don't like that location anyway. It's too far back, and I agree with you. I don't think a lot of folks are going to go back there. I would rather see something further back towards Talega, maybe at the sports park. That'll be a little more centrally located population-wise. You have 3,200 homes back in Talega that would benefit from that more centralized location. Whether there's a polling place or not, during those other, 19 days, whatever it is, I think you would have a better alternative for drive-through. And it's an underutilized parking lot. There's a lot of space back there, a lot of places to locate it. It's out of sight. I think it's a nice little convenience. How necessary is it really, considering a lot of folks are doing stuff online and mailing things in and all that. I don't like the permanent nature of this at all, because they are big and not very pretty. So if we're going to do this, let's put them in locations that are kind of out of sight, out of sight. So looks like we're looking for places that have existing concrete, so we're not pouring pads to save time and money. I appreciate that too, because if it's going to be at San Gregorio, I can think of a dozen places that are much better, parking-wise and visibility-wise, but I understand that particular location. Whether it's at Jim Johnson or here, it's to me 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You're still going to drive in. Whether Shore Cliffs is served or the new residential uses over there by Jim Johnson. So I think they're all okay temporarily. I like to see this come back. I'd like to see the frequency of usage, and then have more time to revisit more permanent locations and maybe locations that would allow a drive-through situation to happen. Because I think 2 of these locations offer that. I went out to the golf course in the area across from the parking lot on the left side. There's enough room in there. It's landscaped area, but a pad would need to be poured and some work would need to be done that takes time. I think in all these locations are large enough to where if a little money is spent on the proper installation, it could be nice and be a lot more effective for folks driving through.
Chair Rulin, if I could add one thing.
Yes.
So the draft license agreements that Joanne is working on and presenting to City Council on December 17th, those are 5-year license agreements. So if the Planning Commission is concerned about the permanency of this and wishes to revisit this in the future, you could, recommend reducing the time frame and term of those license agreements.
And thank you. And for the Planning Commission, I would be in favor of that, have it there for a year or two, and then bring this back to us so that we can, evaluate, which ones are in use, and now we've gone through a couple of elections, and see if there are more, better places for these. So it sounds, I see some nodding heads, so I'm.
60 days. 60 days.
That's not
Get
gonna
through the primary, and then we can actually examine it.
1 year.
1 year, sorry.
I suspect maybe our registrar, John can tell us, is that practical, or I'm thinking a year or two contract might be a demand, I don't know, but. you're talking 5 years, 60 days.
I think
is the
at least
opposite.
one full election cycle, so that would go through March and November to get actual data, because voting is different in primary versus a general election.
Okay, so maybe 2021, January of 2021, we could take another look at this or something. So that would be a year, kind of a yearly sort of a thing. If the county is good with that, then that might be a good thing for us to do. Because then we'll have more information about what might make a good spot, so. Let me ask too, the spots for the voting centers, that's a new term I have to learn. One is down on Del Mar, right, at the community center, and the other's up at the Visitor Hermosa Sports Park? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
That's correct. The 11-day voting center is at the Fireside Room, Community Center, and then the one at the Sports Park in the Friends Room is a 4-day.
Okay, and those are the only other two? So
That's all we have. I believe they are looking for 2 more 4-day centers through private people.
Okay, so those 2 plus these 3, maybe 2 more, plus the US mail are the options that people have with this. Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Zen, you've been waiting.
Yes, regarding location, first I'd like to eliminate Sangonia Park for the reason Don already stated. I really like the idea of the Jim Johnson Memorial Park. I think it meets all the requirements. The good thing is the parking lot in Jim Johnson Memorial Park currently is a loop. There are a few connectors that's temporarily blocked to avoid some people cutting short. But during that voting period of time, we can remove that concrete block to open the connector. And this ballot box can be put on the left side of, and once we open it, we make it one way. So the ballot box can be put on the left side of that connector. It's a very short connector.
I'm not sure how closely we can look at a whole nother location. These are the 4 locations in the staff report.
I'd be willing to look at that.
We've got
I'd be
things.
willing to vote for that,
Well,
because.
if
I
you
don't
look
like
at
being
the
told
5
that we can't.
criteria,
We can, we absolutely.
it's going to be better than Sangonia anyway,
I think it's
each of them.
almost too late to start changing the location other than
Yeah,
modify the location you had, just
I
the time
agree,
frame they have here.
Well, this may not be a perfect solution, but odds are we can make the solution worse if we haven't
One
investigated
is
this.
better than the
thoroughly.
enemy of good.
Nothing's been engineered, this is city property. We don't have to negotiate with anybody. It should be a slam dunk.
We have to install it by the 23rd of January.
Well, they haven't engineered any of these sites yet, so if we point to a new one, they can certainly do that.
All we need is to have the
take a
county
straw
to quickly assess that location, just to double check it, to verify that it meets all the requirements.
Now,
It's even got the
Joanne,
trolley.
right now, the county will maintain them. So we're talking about all the signage and all. I don't know who's going to do that. County's not going to do it. We're putting the onus then on us to signage for an election, and that's really not in our, we don't want to be shackling the city with the cost of changing signs and redirecting things if we don't have to do it. So we can have some permanent locations like this one where circulation's very good in that one park. And I think the golf course, one of those sites can be certainly done, and the concrete's there. So no engineering other than drilling the holes and putting in the dowels to hold it down. At the sports park, we've got I'm going to call it a polling center, but it's not. It's
Vote center.
it's got a new name. So we don't need to put one there. So it's the Forester Ranch kind of location if we had an alternative there, I don't know.
I'd certainly see location 1, location 3, and then put one over at Jim
Johnson
Jim
Memorial.
Johnson Park, at the, and they can find a location in there. I don't need to see the location, but I think that if you're really looking for centralized and use, and you're actually wanting to encourage people to utilize these instead of just saying that you want people to utilize these, which you sometimes wonder when we make voting more difficult. I think that's a good location, and I'm sure that city staff can figure out how to make that work.
I'm not in favor of adding a new location because we've had no staff report on it. We haven't, some of us at least haven't gone by those locations to investigate it and say, is this better or worse than the other ones? So I think I think
you go with a one-year lease with 3 locations, and then you look at it in a year when you've got time to really think about it.
the county's paying for it, so,
Time
yeah.
for this in the cycle.
But they don't ever change anything.
Let me ask Gabriel. Gabriel, this is coming to us just to give a recommendation to the city council. They're not going to engineer this before they get city council approval. So between now and city council approval, they can get one of these alternative sites, I think, solved and worked out.
City council approval is going to happen before we meet again, right?
It doesn't have to come back to us.
17th of December, it's on its way. When we leave here, it leaves.
Let me make a recommendation. I know we see a lot of lights on here. We're talking about a lot about what we don't like and what we don't think we can do. Let's see what we can do in terms of at least seeing if we can get 1, 2, or, 1 or 2 sites with a thumbs up here. It sounds to me like location 3, the municipal golf course, that one of the areas on there might be acceptable to all of us. Can we take at least a straw poll to see, or vote, to see if we can vote on an area there?
Good.
Is there a specific place?
Well, it was mentioned to put under the tree, but that's grass. There's no concrete there.
Well, over, I think, by the tee box, do you see the second arrow there? On the bottom one, over by the power box?
By the transfer.
By the green one? By the green box? Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
As long as we can, but the utility has separation requirements. You can't just put stuff right up against it. That's a transformer.
Certainly not to the opening side of it,
Yeah.
to the doors. You got to have 8 feet or whatever it is.
It's also possible that we put the box to the left side of the first parking space, so people don't have to get off the car and they pull into that space, drop the mail ballot, and they back out and they go. It's less ideal than a drive-through, but still quicker than park, walk.
Yeah, but if the space is taken, then people might have to walk around the car and bump up against
Well,
the car.
we're gonna park and walk there anyway, in our default design.
But my point is, if a car is parked there, how close is that opening going to be to the door of the car that's parked there? And then people have to go between those to drop
We'll
off their
also make
ballot.
sure it's handicap accessible to
Yeah.
the
No,
van, handicap space.
The
Yeah.
pedestrian slot is on the other side.
Handicaps are right on the
The
road.
box has 2 sides.
Well, both these are handicap accessible, we know that, correct? Staff has looked at that. So if we know that those are handicapped accessible, and it needs to be handicapped accessible, yeah, no, they've looked at, they've investigated that, so.
Okay.
So, could we go back to the other one? So I'm kind of with Bart, put it by that right-hand green arrow, that location, next to the green box there.
Golf manager Gus Owen's happy.
Yeah.
He suggested it.
I'll even go so far as to make a motion that we that we recommend one of the boxes go in that location.
I'll second.
A motion by,
So each one separate.
With the caveat that it is
It
okay.
is accessible.
And the separation from the utility.
Well, we have to make sure it's
Well-
accessible.
Because there is a separation
It's all
requirement in
accessible.
the all around the box.
Yeah.
And accessible.
You
Yeah.
can't build up
But-
against
but-
any side of that box.
well, they won't,
Any side of it.
Let staff
yeah,
fine tune.
staff will
that's what I'm
figure that
saying,
out.
that's the
So,
caveat.
motion by, did you get the motion that we recommend at that location?
By you and second by.
Second by Brown. Any more discussion on this location? All right, all in favor of that location?
Aye.
Aye? Any
I
opposed?
abstain because I don't feel I have enough information.
All right, so we've got, it's,
I abstain.
you abstain? Then it's 1, 2, 4, 0, 2 with Zen and Jason abstaining. All right, so let's bring up the map.
Well, since we're making motions, I'll make a motion that we put a box at Jim Jean Park. Jim Johnson Park.
Where in Jim Johnson Park?
I'll leave that to staff's discretion to put one inside of that park that's accessible.
So just in the park and no particular location recommended?
I will, absolutely. I'll leave that to staff's discretion. It gives them time to do that before the council meeting. I trust them to be able to do that. Hey,
Let me ask.
Should we pull it up on Google Maps?
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
pull it
does.
up,
Sure.
but also give us some input. Would you have time to identify a location and install something and do that before the city council meeting?
They're just dropping it on the ground. That's all they're
Yeah, it's
doing.
just an arrow.
Yeah.
I know, let's see what,
All they've done.
let's ask staff if, what kind of bandwidth they have for it, so.
Yes, there would be enough time to take a look and walk the site, as long as we can have county staff available also to do an assessment.
Okay, why don't you bring it up on Google Maps and take a look. Can you zoom out a little bit? I just kind of want to see it in relation to the rest of the city and where.
Gorgonio's to the left and up.
Yeah.
so that's Dragonia over there.
Yeah.
It's close.
A major on-off ramp, it's accessible, people are at the outlets, I think it services that end of town pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, the accessibility is a big one. That's a big deal. Yeah, Gorgonio will be difficult.
Well, especially with that hill.
You go all the way around, yeah. Yeah, so that's out.
I'm sorry, that's as far as the
Yeah.
streetcar went.
Sure, that's fine.
Spots there, there's a restaurant toward the other end.
Right there in the middle is where it's all blocked off. Commissioner Wu was mentioning that. It's cordoned off. You see, right there, right where your cursor is, but in the middle. That's the area he was talking about, opening it up for voting during the voting time, right in the center.
So come down a little bit. Right.
Twice a day,
Yeah.
that parking lot's jammed.
So is
Kids.
Forrester. Probably worse. Can't get out in Forrester except for the traffic guard.
Any staff can find a place out there.
I mean,
All right, so we do have currently a motion by Jason for
Second.
the sports park.
And a second, but you mean for this Johnson part?
Sorry, Jim Johnson Park, yeah, so second.
And a second by me,
Second by
Crandall.
Bart.
So.
Any other discussion on this?
So before we go to a vote on it, would this be an alternative? Is this intended to be an alternative to one of the sites? San
so this
Gregorio?
would be an alternative to Gregornio.
Okay.
Well, you're moving, that this is one of
Yeah,
the
this
three
is one of the
sites.
three.
You only want three.
Yeah, so this is one of the three.
So we would eliminate the other.
You have to eliminate, which one?
This is one of the three, so we can go through the next ones and vote them up or down, or we can take a straw vote on the rest.
Hash.
Yeah, and I'll, at the risk of repeating myself, this might be a great location, but I don't think that, there's been no research done on it or anything like that, so I can't support it.
I don't think that much research has been done on anything, to be perfectly honest with you. We're racing into this.
It looks like they're looking for flat, improved surfaces to drop a
But there might be
a
people-
4x6 box on, basically.
I support it.
Call the question.
Any other okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No?
No.
So Dawn and Jim, no. Everyone else in favor. So it passes 4-2. So that's our second location.
You want to do a straw vote on the remaining ones?
Well, let's take a look and remind ourselves, there's there's Forester Ranch
City Hall.
and City Hall. I think City Hall is kind of a really good default location for a voting, for voting box. It's like, if you don't know where to go to City Hall, kind of a thing. The signage, the only thing that concerns me is if it's around back like that, is people finding it. There will be maps, which is good, but I kind of recommend temporary signage for when the vote's active.
Now, I will say one strange thing here. Isn't there a post office across the street?
There is, but I would say during our last mail ballot election, we still had people that felt more comfortable coming to City Hall.
Okay, great. I'll buy that.
I actually prefer location to be in the front.
I kind of do too.
I don't like the stairs here, in the way of ramps, but still.
In the back, there's an ADA ramp.
I kind of like it in the front, except for the fact that it's bright in there. I've really kind of torn about it. At first I didn't like it at all in the back, but if we have some temporary signage to guide people there during the election time, and there's going to be information in the voter packet, the fact that it's there, then maybe it's a good location.
So here's my thought on why it should be in the front. This is City Hall, okay? City is at the service of the people. And you institute a government by voting people into elected office. And I kind of like the fact that every day our city employees pass by something that reminds them that they serve the people too. I mean, I guess I kind of take the contrarian view that they don't want to have to see it every day when they walk in. Well, maybe we should all see that every day when we walk in. That's a reminder of our democracy. I like it in the front.
That's right. It's a symbol of our
It's a
democracy.
symbol. Every day you... Thank you. Well, I mean, it's something that we should be proud of, and we should remind ourselves when we walk in there. And it's bright, and you'll see it.
Is there any room that would allow access? It is a large box.
There is room at the front of the building.
Okay.
Not particularly on the front doorstep, I hope.
It's a little bit hard to see, but there is a little niche right over here that the county said would be a viable location for the exact box placement.
So do we want to say, kind of like we did before, that in front of the city hall, this precise location to be staff's discretion? Is that fair?
And I'm not even opposed to saying, since this is a recommendation to council, our first recommendation would be the front, second one can be the back. Let them pick it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we make the recommendation at the front, and if they want to move it to the back, they can move it to the back.
Okay.
okay, let's have a
So I'll
motion.
make a motion, and please let the minutes reflect the rationale behind putting it in the front.
With the applause.
No necessary.
I second it.
Okay.
So that's because it's a symbol or a reminder of our democracy?
Yes.
And that staff will be reminded that they serve the people?
I think that's good.
I think
Everybody
I
that
think she'll
knows.
pick it up in the bullet points like
Yeah,
she
that's
normally
fine.
does.
Thank you. You can-
So let me, just to clarify, the motion is to recommend that the box go in the front, the exact location.
To be determined by staff.
To be staff's discretion.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you get that motion?
I second.
So the motion from Jason, second from
And then
Zen.
right, but then the second part of this motion is that if that is not feasible.
No, we're just leaving it like
You're just
that.
leaving
It's
it-
a recommendation.
Well,
so
the
it's
motion
we're
also
leaving it out.
include that this is
City
a
council can change it if they like to.
select location.
So, yeah, I know. So, all right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
We got one.
We got three? Well, no, we got three
Oh,
recommendations.
no, we got one unanimously.
And clarification, are you still, you still want 1 year on this?
Yes.
Or are you? okay.
Yeah, I beg your pardon, yes, still 1 year. Do
Okay.
we need to vote on that? Would you prefer a vote on that
I think
recommendation?
I got
or-
the consensus unless.
Yeah, I think a year to come back and with some better information, once we have a couple of voting cycles, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you all. I do apologize that it was such a quick turnaround. It's a big job for the county.
That was not your
Okay.
fault, so thanks.
They
for-
are our excellent election partners. Thank you.
Your hard work.
Yeah, thanks so much.
To do that.
All right, next item, 10, old business, 702 Avenida de la Estrella, time extension of site plan permit 19-358.
Oh, cool, thanks. It should be in it's in the folder that she. It's in the top folder. Cornerstone, Colombiana, right there, 12/4/19, yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Got it, thank you.
Let's see.
Don't forget the C.
All right. So tonight I'm presenting a request for a time extension for the Cornerstone Community Church Master Plan. The request is solely for an extension of time on a previously approved site plan and does not propose any modifications or additions to the plan that was previously approved. In 2008, the Cornerstone Community Church proposed a church master plan through site plan permit 06027, conditional use permit 08030, and minor exception permit 08270, requesting an expansion of the existing church located at 702 Camino de la Estrella. The project site of the existing church is located slightly east of Interstate 5 in a residential medium zoning district, abutting residential properties on the north side of the church's property. The Cornerstone Community Church Master Plan was approved at Planning Commission in August 2008 to make modifications both internally and externally, adding a church steeple and a 1,873 square foot second story for classroom space that incorporates and enhances the Spanish colonial revival architecture of the building. At that time, planning staff and the applicant worked together to create a feasible timeline for the multi-phased project. The 2008 timeline set for the completion of the master plan is detailed for the commissioners on page 4 of the staff report. The timeline ranges, the initial timeline that was approved in 2008 ranges from 2 to 10 years for each of the 5 items listed in the timetable. On September 21st, 2011, the Planning Commission approved a request for an extension of time, also detailed on the same page previously mentioned, page 4. The time extension provided the church additional time to raise funds for the project. The approved time extension amended the conditions of approval and modified the master plan timetable, allowing 3 additional years for each construction phase. It is important to note that the new start date for all phases was reset to begin in 2011 when this time extension was approved. A monument sign was also requested at this time through discretionary sign permit and now exists on site. In the year 2014, subsequent to the time extension approved in 2011, Phase 1 of the master plan was fully completed. Phase 1 required building permits to be pulled for the exterior remodeling of the sanctuary. This included paintings to the exterior walls and replacement of windows. No additional square footage or structural walls were included in Phase 1 that was completed. Phase 2 of the Cornerstone Church Master Plan was conditioned to be completed in 2019. In September of this year, 2019, the applicant requests a second extension of time for Phase 2 and the remaining items to be completed. This request for a time extension would allow Phase 2 of the Church Master Plan to be completed over the next 10 years and is open for flexibility and interpretation of the number of years that we can make for each of the 4 additional items listed after Phase 1. The extension of time requested today does not propose any modifications to the previously approved site plan permit, conditional use permit, and minor exception permit previously approved in 2008. Today, only the extension of time for the multi-phase project is requested. Here's the proposed timeline for the requested compared to the timelines previously set with the initial approval of plans and the time extension granted in 2011. The far left column was the initial timeline. The second column, 2 to the left, was what was approved in 2011, and what is being requested today is the third column from the left. As you can see, the 10 years is a flat 10-year request for all of the remaining 4 items to be completed. The previously approved project continues to meet all applicable development standards other than the continuation of the non-conforming setback allowed through the approval of the minor exception permit and the height of the proposed church steeple, which was allowed through the approval of the conditional use permit. Architecturally, the overall design of the project continues to be consistent with the city's adopted architectural style: smooth white stucco, finish, red tile roof, rafter tails, massing, and the steeple create a project consistent with Spanish colonial revival. And so today, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution PC 19040 approving time extension 19358, which is a time extension to site plan permit 06027, conditional use permit 08030, and minor exception permit 08270, subject to the conditions of approval, which include the updated timetable for the Cornerstone Community Church Master Plan, extending the timetable for up to 10 years. The applicant is present today and open to answering any questions the commission may have regarding today's request. And the applicant also welcomes a discussion regarding the flexibility of the number of years that is being requested. Okay.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Jason?
Yeah, so I'm just curious, I'm looking at the 2011 extension, and it looks like we go out to 2024. On the original extension, it was given in 2011 for a certain, I guess, for a certain portion of that, is that correct?
For the time extension in 2011, it goes out to, can you repeat that?
It goes out the maximum year there, if I'm looking at that chart on page 4, there down at the bottom, it goes out to 2024,
That's
right?
correct. So with the additional 3 years on the 8, it went for 11 years, and then for the last one, 13.
So, I guess I'm sitting here going 2029, that's a long time. Would taking it into just 2024 and harmonizing everything with 2024, I mean, that's 5 years out, right?
That's right. So that would be 5 years out. So if you had, so you're saying that to change it from 10 to 5 for all of them?
Yeah, to just harmonize it with the maximum extension we have out there right now, and then, I mean, there's nothing that precludes them from coming in 2024 and requesting, or 2023, I guess is when they would do it.
Right.
And requesting an extension.
The previous extension in 2011 was requested due to a need to raise more funds for the project. And
2008 is probably the perfectly wrong time to get a site plan approved and to get, I mean,
I would
yeah.
agree with that. So this time, the request is more in line with some potential opportunities they have to rework the floor plan and rework some of the designs, and which wouldn't change the massing or the style of the building. So that is what's in. I will have the applicant speak to if 5 years would work as opposed to 10.
I mean, do you want to save that for that? I'm just curious if that.
Yeah, let's
Okay, that's-
say the rest of that for
okay, thank
discussion,
you.
but it's a good question. Let's see.
I guess for the applicant.
Michael?
Yes. Do we have any pictures of the site you can show us?
Any actual photographs? Not in this presentation.
Existing site conditions.
We have existing conditions in this, and so the pictures that were available, I didn't think weren't very helpful. And so here on the right side of this plan, that is where the current church exists. And then on the left side of the screen, you have some non-conforming buildings that are planned to be demolished in the site plan permit. So those are going away, and a 16-stall parking lot is going there in its place. And so the church is growing by about 19%, but it's all on the right side where the current sanctuary exists. And so this is the proposed, or this is actually the approved site plan permit.
Can you pull up Google Earth and show us that?
Easiest way.
I assume that's what you were kind of asking for.
Yeah.
Probably pretty close.
We're on Estrella.
Yeah.
It's down the street from Denal's. Or we're at,
Oh, did I put
Yeah, you want to go further south?
Oh, you got it, okay.
There's a couple of Estrellas for some reason.
You know, I haven't needed.
We got a couple of Mr. Hermosa, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel, appreciate it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Do you have a question about that, or you good? You just wanted to see that?
So that's all current, nothing is changing.
The only thing that has changed since the approval of the site plan permit was some painting that was done and some.
go to the sanctuary.
That's a cute little
Right there,
building.
that building there is new.
This building is new? Or,
Since the site plan was permitted in 2008, right?
That was phase 1.
I believe that, is this building new since the site plan permit?
They're redone, that's what they say, it's a couple
It's a
walls.
remodel.
It's an extensive remodel.
It's a remodel, right, okay.
Couple walls.
Okay. Bart, question?
Yeah, just that drawings were completed? Were they ever submitted for building permits?
For the master plan?
Yeah. No, for the whole remodel?
Yeah. What's built out there was permitted.
Okay, but not for the balance?
Right.
Okay, very good.
Zen?
Hey, Cal, you said at this time the reason to ask for extension is for the applicant to rework the floor plan?
That's the idea, to rework the floor plan. There was an opportunity to potentially purchase the lot next to them, and there was an option to grow or to increase the amount of square footage that they were previously proposing, but that option is most likely off the table. And so they will not be doing that, and I think that that is why they were waiting to submit the plans and potentially do the time extension. But now that they're not able to do that, there are some opportunities to rework the floor plans, but extending actual square footages seems to be off the table. So
That's off the table.
to extend to the property that was for purchase.
Okay, so we're renewing the original site plan permit.
We're not reviewing the site plan permit, we're just requesting an extension of time for what was previously approved.
Right, okay.
And so any changes in the future through this 5 or 10-year period, any changes that are requested, as long as they're minimal, I think planning staff would be able to justify that it can fall under the previously approved site plan permit, but if anything does not, it would come back to planning commission for review.
Okay. This was a site plan permit and a minor exception permit approved back in 2008. There's no development agreement, therefore, when we decide to renew it, it's subject to today's regulations, right?
Correct.
Can you go through with me the exceptions that was initially made?
The minor exception permit? So the minor exception permit was for non-conforming setbacks that exist. So the minor exception permit was approved due to a non-conforming setback that was proposed.
Okay.
And the conditional use permit was approved for the steeple that extends above the height, the maximum height limit in the zone. The actual building does not exceed the 25-foot height limit, but the steeple does, and that's what the CUP was for.
Okay. Are they still allowable with today's regulations?
These are still valid and still right, exactly. So we would be able to make the same findings.
So there's no change of our regulation since 2008 that would cause a different outcome if you were to review it today?
Not in correlation with what was requested of the minor exception permit. There may have been some changes, but the findings the findings that are in the code still pertain to the findings that were made to approve the minor exception permit.
Thank you.
All right, would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to come up and say anything, address the commission?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rob Williams. I'm with Studio 6 Architects. I represent the church. We're the architects that did the remodel you see there. We were also the architects that got the master plan approved back in 2008. So it's one of those longer projects for us. Kind of give you a brief history. We don't need a master plan to build a building. The only reason why we got the master plan was because of the trailers. If you notice that little house to the far left, right below there's some trailers that were installed. And their trailers cannot be permanent, they're a temporary use. So when they gave the permit to allow the trailers, they required a master plan. The master plan is only for one reason, is when is those temporary trailers going to be eliminated. And the only way to do that, you got to do a master plan that allows the structures to be what we're doing as far as temporary, to have permanent classrooms. So in 2008, based on the request from the city on the trailers, the master plan was approved. Since then, as you mentioned, the economy changed a little bit in 2008. So what we had to do is we had to ask for an extension for time. And by 2015, actually, is when we completed the remodel you see there. And that's phase 1. Phase 2 is to take and add on to that remodel to the left, if you're facing it from the street, and add a second floor, tear down the non-historic Ole Hansen house, and the trailers then would be removed, and then that would turn into a parking lot. Since then, as all master plans that are 2008 old, there has been some discussion, actually some discussion within the city, that they really like the nice single-story Ole Hansen building. They call it the church, but it's a new building, but they like the style. is there any way we wouldn't add a second floor to that building? So that got us to thinking about, that piece of property behind us has been for sale for a while, so we were negotiating and talking to that individual. And then discussions came up it'd be a shame, even though it's not historic, to tear down that 1922 Ole Hansen house. Is there any way that we can keep that? So we've kicked around a few ideas, and we're a church. The church, has only so much money. We don't like debt, so everything we've built, we paid cash for. So we want to continue to do that. So it takes time to raise funds. So back to the original extension, the completion of all the phases, we broke it down in phases, was 2024. That's why the first phase is done. Second phase, the first timeline is to obtain building permits in 2019. And then that would be completed in 2021, and then temporary move into that, tear down the old church, the old, office and the trailers, build a parking lot there. So the whole thing would be completed in 2024. We don't see that as being possible right now to be able to complete this in 2024. Because, if we say complete in 2024, that doesn't really help us with our extension. So essentially all we're doing, we're asking for a 5-year extension on the 2024. So it's not a 10-year, it's a 10-year based on when permits needed to be pulled. We would like to get rid of anything that has to do with all these different phases. We're only going to build one more phase. First phase is done. And we would like the extension from a 2024 completion to a 2029. That's all we're asking. And we're hoping, we might come back with exactly the same design that was approved. Chances are we won't. And we need some time to factor that in. That's why we want the time. So, got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Zen?
Yeah, so if all you need is a 5-year extension, are you okay with if we give you 5 years for each of the tasks? For example, 2019 become 2024, 2021 become 2026, 2022 become 2027, then 2024 become 2029.
That'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thanks.
I just wanted to, just in case someone in the public wanted to address this, I'll open up a public hearing. Seeing, if we don't have any cards, seeing no one really out there who seems eager to speak to this, we'll close the public hearing. And Jason, you want to start us off?
So Commissioner Wu was asking a question that I hit the button and then turned my light off. So thank you for asking that. I think that makes sense, right? If we're talking about just adding an additional 5 years, you just tack an additional 5 years on. But then one of the comments that he made resonated with me, which was they're not going to do multiple phases. There's going to be one next phase. And so if that's really the case, then are we just making the resolution more difficult by trying to add 5 years to each phase when there's actually only going to be one phase? So you just put it all out to 2029 and be done with it, because except for the trailers, we wouldn't be doing any of this at all. So I think I was where you were going, Zen, but then it's probably just easier just to take it all out as staff has recommended here. So I'd support that.
So I'm sorry, you're saying you're supporting 5 years or 10-year inspection?
I'll support staff's recommendation in the model ordinance that we have.
Okay. Don?
Or Don? Yeah, I basically support what Jason and the staff support. Let's just keep it simple, move it out to 2029 and give the church the flexibility to complete their sanctuary, because they still are now thinking about some other changes, and then they have to fundraise for that because they want to pay cash up front. So let's just make it 2029 and keep it simple for everybody.
Okay.
I concur, and Kyle, good report, and I support the project.
I basically concur with you guys, except for the time extension. Obviously, these neighborhood serving areas, they've got a different context. They're not commercial businesses. I think we need to be certainly more flexible and understanding with them, and we have in the past. My only concern with extending an additional 10 years, that's going to turn this into, all said and done, about a 21-year extension. And given that they were saying in 2011, from the minutes in 2011, that they were just about ready to pull the building permits back then. And now we're 8 years later, and they don't, they haven't done that, obviously, and they need an extension. My concern is that when you look at this, this was, done and approved under our previous general plan. By the time they're looking at probably pulling the building permits, because I don't think it's unreasonable to say, if they're asking for 2029, then it'll be 2029. We're going to be well into the planning for our next general plan. So they're going to be kind of two general plans behind. So while I'm absolutely in favor of an extension, I kind of prefer 3 years. 5 years is okay with me. I just don't want us to go leaping ahead and end up having something where we've changed our design standards, we've changed other standards. Let's come back in 3 years. Let's come back in 5 years. We'll probably just give an extension, but if there's been some kind of changes, we can add a condition or tweak it as appropriate. So we're not building a structure that was sort of approved 20 years previously.
And I recommend that maybe you just take a straw poll on 5 or 10 years, and then we can make it easy. I mean, I can support either, but.
I'd like to respond to
Sure.
what you were saying, that we're going to get what we approved back when. I know that property's been a good neighbor in that neighborhood, and my daughter lives just down the street. They love this thing. It's a beautiful piece of property. They maintain it well. What they submitted and what we approved is, I think, an extremely good-looking project, and love to have it. I'd love to have it sooner, but later is fine, too. It's not like construction will take, what do you figure, 16 months for construction, once you start?
Yeah, 16 to 18 months.
So when it starts is when they have the money. And I'm in full support of this ending up like what was originally submitted. We're a historic town, and things are old and go from general plan to general plan to general plan, whatever. I don't see anything that's going to change this piece of property or the requirements for it. That would happen. So I'm good with what was proposed. Totally understand your concern about what if things change. Well, that's what he's trying to protect himself from. He doesn't want to have to start over.
Yeah, but I agree, and we don't want them to start over. That's not the intent at all. It's to protect the city and the city's needs as we go through the general plans and go through design standard changes and things like that. I'm not even saying we would necessarily need to apply them, but the city deserves to be able to, to provide some feedback in some time in less than 10 years, especially since it's already been over 10 years for this project.
Yeah, I'm balancing the cost to the applicant, that having to reapply, if things change, if they can't get their money together, I'd like to protect them so it does get done. And we can agree to disagree on that, that's fine.
Okay. Zen?
Gabriel, do we have a closure on this extension? How many times can an applicant ask for extension? Is it indefinite?
It's indefinite. There's no limits in the code.
Yeah, church can take a long time. La Sagrada Familia takes...
Remodels can take a long time.
Over
Notre Dame
You're right.
Notre Dame took 1,000 years.
Siding can take a long time.
A church in Barcelona took already taken over 100 years. So I think at a certain time, I'm okay with what's proposed by the staff to make everything 2029. Realistically, they got to pull the permit before that in order to finish everything by 2029. I also would like to see...
No, I think this says they have until 2029 to pull the permit.
Well, they also have until 2029 to finish, complete everything. right? So it's up to them how early they pull the building permit. It must be at least 18 months prior to that.
Okay.
So I'm okay with giving them that flexibility, but at a certain time, I think the city needs to review the whole project one more time. It's I'm not fond of an idea of indefinitely extend something, so, but it's still okay for now, I guess.
Michael?
Is that an option for us to put to limit this now?
Yeah, you could put a limit less than the 10 years.
No. He's asking about limiting the.
Yes.
But you can't bind a future planning commission.
Right. So if we limit the extension, or the number of extensions to.
You can't do that.
Oh, I wouldn't
that.
want to do that, yeah. Give them as many extensions as they want, so, you know, as long as it doesn't disrupt the city.
Yeah. Well, I like this project. I think that, the timeframe is reasonable. The applicant did agree to 5 years. But considering what Commissioner Wu said about pulling the permits in advance, that's really just a little over 8 years. Things will start happening there. I'm wondering, has there been any co-violations on this property since entitlement?
The only code violations that happened were some balloons that were connected to a car during a car wash, something like that. So I was like,
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm in favor of, staff's recommendation.
Okay, Jason?
I'd just like to point out that the last time that an extension was contemplated on this, Commissioner Crandall led the Pledge of Allegiance, just like he did tonight. I found that kind of interesting.
I'll mention too.
And
you were in attendance for it.
This was my first vote.
Oh,
in
was it?
2011. That
Oh,
was
okay.
my first vote on the planning commission was this item, so.
Do we need to make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, Don, did you
Oh, I'm
have?
sorry, Don.
No, I just support it. I'll read the resolution and make a motion.
Okay.
The council passes resolution number PCU 19040, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving a second time extension for a site plan permit 06027, time extension for conditional use permit 08030, time extension for minor exception permit 08-270, Cornerstone Community Church, a request for a time extension for an approved master plan for an existing church located at 702 Avenida de la Estrella.
I'll second that.
Motion by Don, second,
Jason.
second by Jason, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations.
We'll hopefully be able to be invited to church long before 2029.
All right, our next item, under old business, is 1640 North El Camino Real, time extension for CUP 17-322, MCHP 17-420, minor exception permit 18-628, La Colombiana.
Okay.
And Gabriel will be leading this one.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. This item is the La Colombiana time extension. This item was before the Planning Commission not too long ago. That would actually be August 17th. And the Planning Commission did approve those entitlements then. The location is 1640 North El Camino Real. That's where the La Colombia restaurant is located, surrounded mostly by commercial uses on the north, to the west, to the east, and residential to the south on El Camino Real. This is the front elevation. Background to this, when this went to Planning Commission, the Planning Commission approved the conditional use permit. That was to allow full alcohol service indoors and outdoors. An outdoor dining area of more than 4 tables. There was a minor cultural heritage permit because it's in an architectural overlay for minor exterior alterations, and then also a minor exception permit. And that was for a waiver of 3 parking spaces. Here's the site plan. This shows the existing restaurant, and what's shaded in gray is the expanded area, and this shows the parking in the back. Here's the floor plan that the Planning Commission considered, and it shows the indoor and the outdoor dining areas that are highlighted. And just to explain that a little bit further, the expansion of the restaurant would go from 949 square feet of interior space to 1,008 square feet for a total of 1,957 square feet expansion. The outdoor dining area would expand from 171 square feet to 392 square feet. There would be 35 indoor seats and 29 outdoor seats for a total of 64 seats. And here's the elevations. Because it's an architectural overlay, the applicant is supposed to be compliant with Spanish colonial architecture, and they did do this with some of the architectural treatments on the building. And so that includes white stucco walls, incorporation of wood materials through the outdoor trellis, incorporation of metal material in the wrought iron railing. And so the reason the time extension is requested is condition of approval 4.6 that was added requires the applicant to receive the building permit within 6 months of approval. And that date would be October 30th of this year. And so the applicant was in plan check, but wasn't able to pull building permits. One of the conditions of the building permits is that they receive California Coastal Commission approval. They haven't received that yet, but one of the things I'd like to report is that the applicant has paid code compliance violations. You might recall that code compliance was here at that public hearing and was reporting that they were working with the applicant on coming into compliance. So good thing is that those fees have been paid. So the applicant is here in the audience too. He could probably provide a report to where he's at and what his plans are for expanding the building and getting approvals from the California Coastal Commission. Staff does recommend approval of the time extension. The time extension would be for 2 years of the originally approved entitlements, and subject to the conditions of approval, we believe we can still make the findings, including the parking waiver, subject to the 2018 North Beach parking study. The applicant is in the audience if you have any questions. One of the things I wanted to highlight in the resolution is that, let's see, the resolution title, it reads approving the 2-year extension. It actually should read 2-year time extension, so it's clear.
Jason, do you have a question for Gabriel?
Yeah, so I remember when this came before us, it sounds like he hit all the high button items here. He paid the code violations. He's brought himself into code compliance. We had an issue with a tree, I think, that we were wanting moved around, and that's been agreed to and done as we had requested. And he did make this request prior to October 30th, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so, and it's solely being made because of Coastal Commission and the fact that they take time to approve those plans.
Correct. No changes to the plans.
Okay.
So the main reason for this, didn't we know there was a Coastal Commission requirement going in? We should have factored that in when it was brought to us before.
Well, we did require that as part of a condition of approval. There was some uncertainty if a coastal development permit would be required, and even in the communication, they were unsure at the time and concluded with the applicant that the coastal development permit would be required.
The Coastal Commission had some questions about it themselves? Or?
No, staff did.
Staff did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the old art supply up the street across the way had to go for a coastal permit just for the monument site in front of it. So
yeah.
That should have been done. So the 2 years is based on whatever time it takes to get the Coastal Commission permit and then the time to do the rest of the work?
Correct. I think with the 6-month condition, there was no way they were going to receive Coastal Commission approval.
So where are they at in that process?
I think probably the applicant wants to respond to that, but I believe that they haven't submitted yet or are about to submit to the Coastal Commission.
Yeah, why don't you come on up and...
Good evening, Commissioners. So where we're at with the process, I mean, the reason we didn't pull permits is I didn't have plans approved to pull permits. I was just advised today from the city that we're still waiting for OCFA approval, and we're still waiting for Coastal Commission approval. And as I stated in my letter that, in my extension, that reason we didn't have OCFA approval was because I received a letter from OCFA saying this project does not require OCFA approval. When we were at the very end, building said, well, we do need OCFA approval. So we sent it back to OCFA and they said, oh, we made a mistake. So now we start the process. So that's why we don't have OCFA approval yet. And then with Coastal Commission, something similar. I contacted Coastal Commission and they said, you don't need a full Coastal Commission approval, just apply for an exemption. So we went through the process, we applied for the exemption, and this took a while to get that verbiage from them. We went through the process, we applied for an extension, and then a few days before the permit was going to expire, I received a letter from Coastal Commission that said, no, we reevaluated, we will not issue an exemption, you have to go for a full review. And that could take up to 6 months. So we're moving forward with everything. I have my application for Coastal is ready to go. It's on hold because I was pending the outcome of the extension. If we didn't receive our extension, then why submit, the fee $6,000 plus, why submit to Coastal? So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Michael?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So, just to be clear, so the project has been brought into compliance, fees have been paid, and all the compliance issues have been addressed?
That's correct.
And cleared?
Yes.
Okay. And so, you're saying Coastal Commission is asking you for a CDP. And you have the letter?
Yes.
They sent you back rejecting the minor?
Yes.
Okay. They're saying 6 months. And did they tell you why? They're asking?
They said because it's a significant change in use. We went from, 20-something occupants to 64. So because of that, they were not able to issue a waiver.
Okay. All right, that makes more sense. All right. Have you done any improvements to the exterior that you could do, like landscaping, things like that?
We haven't done anything.
You haven't done a thing. Are you using the suite next door?
Yes, we are. Partially, I was given approval by Jack Holden. We went over and because it was, we really needed another bathroom, and that gave us access to a second bathroom. So after the approval, or previous approval, we're allowed to to increase our seats. I talked to Jack, we reviewed it, and Gabriel went down to the project as well, and he said, yeah, you can temporarily use this while we're waiting for everything to be approved.
So Gabriel, is that accurate? So he's got an approval, an official approval?
City building.
Right, so, but also from planning, because that was a planning matter too.
Yeah, but the building official needs to authorize the occupancy.
Okay, and that's all good, okay. How's business?
So. We really need we just need to clean up the restaurant. It's getting a little old, a little tired. I haven't done anything, just waiting. Had you told me 2 years ago this was going to take this long, I wouldn't have gone through this. Yeah.
It's an unfortunate part of, yeah.
Here we are now, so I just want to see it through the end and get things going. We still have great reviews. People still love it. It's a great place for my mom and my kids and enjoy the time there.
Well, do appreciate you making efforts and not blowing this whole thing off, because it is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I know what it's like, going through what you're going through, and it's on a budget especially, trying to make it all work, so keep it moving. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. While I have you up here, I just wanted to invite you to address the commission if you'd like. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, we're happy to hear anything you have to say.
No, I think that, one thing, I don't know if this is a reasonable request or not. I know all our intentions were good when we said 6 months, and I also believed it. We could do it in 6 months. I said, great, we should have our permits in 6 months, and it was, ended up being a little bit unrealistic, a little short, and to resubmit cost me another $1,000 with $1,070.13. Is there any way to have that waived, or that fee returned?
The city planner could.
It'd have to be the city council that does that.
City council does that?
We're not authorized to waive fees.
Okay. then, other than that, I mean, I appreciate the support from everyone here, and, you know, it's construction, it's permitting, I've been doing this all my life, unforeseen things you don't expect. So, you know, we're getting there.
Okay.
You know, I'm so sorry, I do have one more quick question, it could be for either or both. So, we're looking, so the driving factor is coastal.
Coastal, yes.
6 months. How far are you, you say your application's ready to submit?
We're ready to submit.
You are ready to submit? Right, okay, so 6 months. Why are we asking for 2 years? Where did the extra year and a half come from?
So the Plan Commission could change that time extension. It's just our typical time extensions, and so, you know, I thought the 2-year time extension was fair.
Usually isn't it 3 years? They have 3 years from an approval by the planning commission?
Yes.
Yeah, so this kind of brings it in line with that now that they're code compliant. Right, so.
Consistent, yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Zen?
Yeah, I remember this, that we approved this project, but Gabriel, can you remind us what's the reason behind the 6 month condition?
The 6-month condition, that was requested by code compliance. They had a lot of concerns about the code violations, so they wanted the applicant to act very quickly on this project. Maybe it was, the condition was maybe too aggressive, because obviously when you factor in the Coastal Commission approval, it's not feasible to actually have a permit in hand without having that approval, and it's going to be beyond 6 months.
Okay. And during the last 6 months, the applicant did make a good faith effort to address some of the concerns that the code compliance had.
I think so. I mean, paying the fees before the October 30th deadline, I think that was a good faith effort on behalf of the applicant.
And he also worked with the building official to temporarily use the other space to add a new restroom so that he can have more seats.
Correct. And I checked with the building official today to see if there's any further issues by the building division, and there are none.
As a new restaurant on the other side being constructed?
The what? No.
It's, so the temporary okay with more seats is not based on a restroom that's in compliance?
No, I believe it is in compliance, so that was a determination by the building official.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any further, we don't have anyone in the public here, is there any further discussion or even a motion?
I'd like to discuss
I'll make a
it.
motion.
Okay, what would you like to discuss?
Well, mainly it's about the amount of extension. I think one of the reasons we approved this project is the parking waiver. And we consider the availability of a North Beach parking. Now, North Beach area is on a fast transformation. New restaurant opened. Alfresco just opened. Historic district is being studied, so hopefully in the near future, the city will establish a historic district. And we also heard from last night, if you haven't, that there's some progress on Miramar Theater. Once Miramar Theater adaptive use is being completed, it's going to change the parking availability in North Beach District substantially. Has a potential to change it. So the availability of public parking in North Beach area may change. I'm of the opinion that we need to be a little more conservative here. If the original condition is 6 months and then they take about 6 months to get a coastal commission, coastal development permit, maybe we'll give them 1 year. And if it doesn't work out well, come back again.
Art? Yeah, I'll jump into that. When we reviewed this the first time, we had an approved project for the Miramar, and we took into account the parking there. and gave those waivers based on the Miramar being built and done. And I'll tell you what, 6 months is an unreasonable amount of time to get coastal, to get health department, to get fire department, and get architectural plans drawn and permitted. I mean, that's a crazy quick schedule, and I'm surprised we had it. And I think the 2 years is appropriate with getting the permits. I think Jason will vouch that plan check always takes longer than you ever expect it to. And that's not unique to the city. That's any jurisdiction. So I think we took into account Miramar, the North Beach parking at the time. This is only since August that we approved it. So I think he's made progress, and we're approving the use, not really worrying about who the owner is. I mean, that's not something we consider. It's the correct use. I think it's good for North Beach, and I can fully support it.
Okay, let me make a motion.
Okay.
I move the Plan Commission approve Resolution PC 19041, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving the 2-year time extension request for conditional use permit 17-322, minor cultural heritage permit 17-420, minor exception permit 18-628, La Colombiana restaurant expansion to allow expansion of the existing restaurant use to include full alcohol service for on-site consumption indoors and outdoors, minor exterior modifications and waivers of 3 parking spaces located at 1640 North El Camino Real.
Second.
Motion by Don, second by Jason. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Make it happen.
Thank you very much.
All right, go for it.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good night.
All right, reports of commissioners and staff. Does anyone have any reports?
I would, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out that I was very pleased with the council action last night on 8A regarding the Planning Commission, where they retained the current process by which they solicit volunteers for this committee and then interview those potential volunteers and then appoint them by a vote of the majority of the council.
Don, did you have something?
Yeah, I was in attendance along with Bart last night when they went through it. There was a brief discussion on reducing this from 7 to 5. That was short-lived. I think it was always good with the new mayor being a former planning commissioner. I was going to go forward and say you can't really operate at our current operation without 7 members, because the design review subcommittee would become a full committee and you need 5 more people if you dropped us to 5. So we stay at 7, and we're back to being appointed the traditional way rather than each council member get a pet or a specific appointee, so to speak. So, and the rest, they made a lot of other changes, so the city clerk's got to go back and redo the ordinance and polish it up and come back for final voting approval in January, probably. I don't think they'll make it by the next
And
council meeting.
we only have 2 hours to complete our work every week now?
No, we're not limited to that. In fact, the HR, well, the HR person went forward, but it's tough to do that, so they extended everybody to 3 hours, except
us, right?
And they only meet, most of these other commissions and committees now only meet every other month. So they're bi-monthly, and then we slog on twice a month. So, any rate, so really minimal, it turned out to be minimal changes or no changes for us.
Thank God for study sessions.
And correct me if I'm wrong, on my understanding, we're up for reappointment in June, and I don't know how they're going to select who is appointed for 1 year and 2 years to get everything back on the staggered thing. So
sure
be aware that
the city clerk
should be resolved before then, but it's something to consider.
Well, everybody that's here, when your terms are up, it's going to be an equivalent type.
Well, I assume maybe 3 positions for 2 years and another 4 positions for 1 year, or vice versa.
Probably the holdovers will only be a 1 year, and the ones that are normally.
Yeah, I was held over, so it's probably a If I want again, it'd be 1 year.
It's going to be back to the city council for approval, then after second reading, it will take effect. Jason, are you clear that are you going to continue to go to coastal advisory committee meeting?
I'm waiting until they,
Till the second
until the
reading.
next, yeah, we'll see.
He has to go if he ever makes a meeting.
I'm gonna take my plastic water.
All right, if there is...
Chairman, there's one
Oh,
other item on
Gabriel,
there.
yes,
Just
please.
some discussion from the Plan Commission about the January 7th regular Plan Commission meeting. Just wondering if there's any desire to cancel the meeting. The City Council is canceling their first meeting, but that's up to the Plan Commission.
I will not be in attendance if we have that meeting.
Is there anybody else?
Full schedule?
We don't have anything scheduled right now.
Just cancel.
So, yeah.
So you don't see anyone,
I know Public Works wants to take an item on a general plan amendment related to the mobility element. So that could go on January 7th, but it could wait.
Make sure that the council is approved.
You'll have a lot of staff on vacation preparing for that meeting, so.
is there any interest in keeping it or canceling it? Is there?
I'd say cancel.
Cancel. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and cancel it then.
Also, Gabriel, I think the rotation of our design review subcommittee will be exhausted by the beginning of next year, right? So we need to see another schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to have Stephanie set that.
We'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
This goes through January 22nd.
And I will remind everyone, our next meeting is where we will be approving the, or voting on the small cell ordinance. So please, everyone make a point of being there. I have encouraged staff to send us material as quickly as they can. So if even if, the lawyers haven't dotted every I and crossed every T, get it in front of you guys. So if there's any issue you see, you can ask questions of staff and make sure that's handled. Because obviously we spent a lot of time on this so far. We are on a bit of a clock. We want to do it right, of course, but if we can get it done in the planned timeframe, that's ideal.
We're starting at 6 in a study session, right?
There is a study session, yes.
Well, there is. Perhaps we should start it. I anticipate a fairly large
There might be.
turnout. Should we
What's the study session for?
It's for hospital site zoning. So,
It's important.
do you want to consider starting 5 o'clock?
Which day is this?
This would be 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
Actually, I could do 5 o'clock, if that, does
You
that?
can always miss a study session if you had to.
Yeah, don't miss that study session though, because looking at other zoning for a hospital is critical for the community, so.
Very heated last time.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn to the,
I got I will be out of town January 22nd and miss the meeting.
Okay.
I'll be at my son's graduation from BMT.
congratulations. So I'd make a motion that we adjourn to the next regular meeting of the study session and Planning Commission to be held on December 18, 2019 at 5 o'clock p.m. in council chambers located at 100 Avenida Presidio, San Clemente, California.
Motion by Jason, second by Michael, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes
Now, good to
unanimously.
see you.
Yeah, no, you didn't say a word.
Yeah.
Quiet, man. Easy money.